Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. I hope you're all well and have had an amazing week so far. So, I'm very happy to have back with me Kerri Saint from Australia, who, as you probably all know by now, and if those of you who haven't, she's our amazing um, advocate for the adoptees from Australia and is doing amazing work at exposing a lot of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes and, yeah, under the belly, I want to say, right? Because Kerri herself has been an adoptee and was trafficked and made to work in the charcoal pits by her adoptive family when she was as tiny as 5 years old. That's quite traumatic. Anyway, what we're going to be doing today is chatting a little bit more about the sound of deception, the topic that's on everyone's lips. And we did an amazing interview with Jessie Zabota on solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa on Wednesday. And of course, within a couple of hours, it got whacked down by YouTube for medical misinformation. I mean, can you believe it? And so now it's up on Rumble. And I'm going to ask Morna if you'll just put the link into the comments section so you guys can go and check out very, very informative interview with Jessie on the sound of a deception, as well as Switzerland, and which we certainly going to be doing some more deep dives into that. But anyway, before we go any further, we have a sponsor again for our show today, who is a Spooky Tooth. And today, yeah, you see, that's the little MiraMate. That's the one I have. So we're going to be hearing some stories later on, around about the middle of the show on the MiraMate. So what we're saying here is it's the world's most advanced and versatile PEMF machine. MiraMate offers healing devices that are affordable and accessible to everyone. Spooky 2 MiraMate are the creators of frequency. I like to call it frequency medicine. They don't call it frequency medicine, but I do, because for me that's what it is. And they create these amazing home rife machines. So you're welcome to actually check it out. Their website, we'll put the scroll up now. And if you're interested in purchasing anything like this, you can use my name, Chantal, as the coupon code to get 5% discount on your purchases. And I really want to say this little thing that you're seeing in the corner of the screen, it is really a little magic maker. It's honestly, they work with energy. They dissolve the negative energies and then realign the energy. So it like reverses and then goes in, reverses. It's a beautiful process, and they've got really amazing people who can tell you exactly how it works, obviously on a more advanced level. Anyway, on that note, welcome, Kerri. How are you doing?
Good morning, and it's good evening to people on my side
Yeah,
of the
good
world.
evening to you.
Yes. So, we've got a bit of a deep dive today on a particular movie that's floating around that talks about child trafficking.
Sorry,
Um,
just a moment. I've just got one of the
sure.
viewers, Zioa. Can anyone else hear really high pitched ringing? I can hear you fine, Kerri. Morna in the background says everything is good. Kerri, are you hearing me fine?
Yes, fine, nothing.
Okay. Sandra Johnson says, hi, I hear it.
Really.
Someone else says, no, they don't. So I'm not
Okay.
sure where that could be coming from. We don't hear it in our um, sound here. So I hope that it's going to sort itself out, guys. I'm sorry about that if it's coming from us, but nothing's impossible in this day and age, because it's possible our frequencies are being interfered with as well.
Mm.
How these things work. So hang in there, please, if you don't mind. We got important stuff to talk about. Anyway, Kerri, so over to you again.
Okay. Yeah. So what got me interested when I first heard that there was a movie coming about child trafficking, I thought this is going to be terrific. But I heard that Mel Gibson was doing a 4-part documentary, and I kind of thought, well, okay, that's a bit interesting. But I started to see snippets of this Sound of Freedom and the language that was used about it, and I started getting sort of my little tentacles started to go up in the sense of something's not quite right. And as I started to do my own little bit of a research before I started listening to anybody about what they had to say about it, I actually went looking up, like I always do. I start kind of digging a bit, and I found out that Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel are both adopted parents. And Tim Ballard has 9 children, and 2 of them are adopted from Haiti, which to me already got my ears and really picked up. And then Jim
Excuse me,
Caviezel,
he has
yeah,
9 children. Ballard has
yes,
9 adoptive children.
no, 9 children. He has, there's only 2 who are adopted, 2 from Haiti.
Okay.
And they came from one of his very early on rescues from there. And but when you go and look up Tim Ballard, there's nothing that sort of says anything about his birth date or who his parents are, or information on siblings, which I thought was a little bit odd, because you can generally find that information out about people, particularly people who have created movies or something. Perhaps it's got something to do with the fact he's in the CIA. I don't know. But if anybody does come across it or thinks that that's the reason why,
I'm just seeing here as well that, Sandra's mentioning in the chat, didn't he work for the Clintons? I have definitely
yes,
heard rumblings of that. And
yes,
then Pat is saying he worked under Obama. And of
yes.
course, we know that nothing
Yeah.
good comes from
He's actually been linked to the woman that I brought up in one of our interviews, this a Salisbury woman who got done for what she worked for Clinton's, and she trafficked 33 children from Haiti. He was connected there somewhere with that.
Yes.
So yes, and he's in the CIA. Like, okay, CIA, Clinton, like, and he's a Mormon. He's an elder in the Mormon church. And you've interviewed Asia Rain as well from the Mormon church that
Wow.
explains things.
I had no idea that he was actually in the Mormon church. And I
Oh
mean,
my
sorry
goodness. So
to
you're
anyone
missing
who's,
something.
wow. That is new information to me on him. I've also, and I know obviously because you guys know that I have interviewed Jessie regularly, and honestly, I do trust her information hugely. And if you guys watch that interview on BitChute, because it's taken off YouTube now, if you watch it on BitChute, she also speaks a lot about that. And you got to look at the rings these guys are wearing and the little pins and ties and brooches, right? They're telling you all the time what is going on.
Yeah. There's I hope this is okay to mention, there's a lady that has her own YouTube channel called Galactic Storyteller, and she exposes the Mormon church, and she interviews some pretty some victims of the Mormon church, and also she tells her own story where she talks about the washing and anointing ceremony, and because she was a Mormon herself, and it's exact almost to the Mason oath, where they go across their throat, and it symbolizes the fact that they'll have their bowels taken out and their throat cut if they reveal any of the truths that go on with inside the Mormon church. So she says that when they're young people, they go through this and they're actually stripped of all their clothing, and they have a person pray over them, and they start at their head and their eyes and their mouth, and to point down to their genitalia, and they're completely shocked because they're not warned that this will happen to them, and because that's where the Mason oath is taken. And so, and the fellow that started the Mormon church was a Freemason. He actually became a 33-degree Freemason in one day, because he'd been so involved in this sort of satanic side of his life. So it's quite interesting, to find out that Tim Ballard is an actual Mormon and is connected quite prolifically in the sense of the New World Order and their plans.
So I'm reading a comment here again from Remy. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation, which is quite horrific. So I want to just talk about that as well, yeah?
Okay.
Remy says, Tim got my daughter away from the local gang and motorcycle clubs in New Zealand when she was kidnapped and raped in Hastings a few years ago, and it is all on film. Her name is Courtney, but then there's another follow-up message. What you're saying is it was Highway 61 motorcycle clubs in Hastings in New Zealand, and basically what she's saying, that Tim got her daughter. Okay, I'm not going to read out your threats. Okay. I understand.
I'm going to say this at this point, is that Tim Ballard is rescuing children. I don't want to.
I was about to say that. Sorry, I was about to say it doesn't mean.
I want to make that very, very clear, that Tim Ballard is rescuing children, and yes, he's done some very good work. So I don't want to say, because anything in the essence of that this movie is complete lie, because it's not, and children are trafficked. So I just want to make that really, really clear to people that I do. Now, I'm just going to throw some things out there, and I think it's really important that people make up their own minds. I'm not here to convince you one way or another. I'm just going to throw you out the information. But I'd like you to hang in there with me, because when I get to the end of this, you might kind of understand why I'm saying some of the things that I'm saying in the beginning. All right. So we know that Jim Caviezel is also a devout Catholic. He has also 9 children and 3 adopted children. So he's got 9 children, 3 of those adopted, and 3 of those adopted children come from China. Now,
Caviezel as well as Ballard, they both have 9.
Yes. Okay.
That's wow.
Okay.
That's insane.
Okay. So not saying anything's wrong with that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, sure. It's just a coincidence. I find it coincidental.
Correct. Here are some links. And we know in my previous interviews of some of the Hollywood people who adopt. I went through the list of Lionel Richie, Julie Andrews, Viola Davis, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Madonna, Meg Ryan, Sandra Bullock. The list goes on and on and on. All right. Okay. Are you a bad person for adopting? No. But we know that adoption has some serious issues around it. We know, like the things that I've been sharing, and it was recently when we talked about the children that are rehomed in America. There's no regulations. It's a $1 million business. And Jim Caviezel says God's children are not for sale. Well, how come they're only allowed to be for sale through adoption, right? And children get abused in adoption, right? Now, Tim Ballard wanted to filter children from Haiti into Mormon families for $20,000 each for adoptions. I find it hypocritical if you're out there rescuing children and then have your motto is God's children are not for sale, take them out of their own country and their culture and their heritage and put them in a foreign country, and money is exchanged.
How far are we going back now? When you're talking about these adoptions that he was arranging, is this a recent thing?
He wanted to arrange those adoptions. All right. So I'm not sure if he followed through with that, but that was the plan. because we know what's happening in Haiti, and they are pro-adoption, and coming from the Christian, the so-called Christian background, I suppose, and what they're saying is that let's send these kids off to good homes. But if anybody's heard me talk about adoption and the fact that, you know, and what it does to a person, where your whole identity is removed and wiped, and your culture is stripped from you, your birth certificate is changed. There are all these issues that come with it. So, you know, this is the problem with this, that you can say that God's children are not for sale, but America and other countries have, and America's the worst, horrific history and of adoptions, and currently. So millions of dollars are spent on removing children from their biological families. And in America, you can't get access to birth certificates in most states. And then you have that horrendous thing of rehoming. So you heard me tell a story the other week about the children being abused and rehoming and the sexual abuse that goes on there. So there are issues that I have with this. And so, you know, Jim Caviezel, I've just said, he's also a devout Catholic, has special devotion to the Virgin Mary, and he's pretty much famous for the Passion of the Christ. In the Passion of the Christ in Italy, he received daily counsel, confession, and Holy Communion from a Catholic priest, and was a spokesman for the first Catholic men's conference in Boston. Now, I also have a problem with the fact that the Catholic Church has abused more children worldwide than any other organization.
Yes.
Now, why is Jim Caviezel not addressing that with his good friend, the Pope? Because there are images of him having good old conversations with the Pope, and here he is having daily confessions and Holy Communion with a Catholic priest. Here in Australia, we had a Royal Commission into sexual abuse, and it's not gotten out there very well because the powers that be that don't want this information out make sure it isn't. Apparently, there were 40,000 victims that sent in information to this Royal Commission, and the Royal Commission only took about 4,000 of those cases to interview. And at the end of it, there was only one politician in that committee that stood up, and he said that basically there was a 90-year suppression order now put on the names that had been revealed through this Royal Commission, and they were ex-prime ministers, and they were high-profile people, actors and whatnot, that had been, and they were on police documents and had been revealed in this Royal Commission, and now it's sealed for 90 years. Because he said if the public find out what happened in Australia, everybody would lose confidence in the judiciary, right? So there were judges that were sexual abusers. And so this is why Fiona Barnett, and she's telling her story, I know it's true, and many other victims know it's true. So because we've had this Royal Commission. So there are people sitting on that committee and people that sit as judges that put pedophiles in jail that are pedophiles. So I want to put this into perspective about this movie, that people sitting in good places, seemingly to do good deeds, can often be hiding something behind their good deeds. I'm sorry, but Judas betrayed Jesus, right? Judas betrayed as being somebody that was on Jesus's side, right? And by not having our eyes open to look at the reality of this movie, will leave you open to be so deceived that you will never know what the truth is. Is it important to know whether you're being deceived with this movie or the people in it or the message in it, and why? Because what I'm seeing is a division happening, and I'm seeing a language around this movie that is basically reaffirming to me why this movie's been made and where it wants to take us as a society. So you've got to imagine you've got a Mormon elder and Jim Caviezel, who's a Catholic, and both of those are tied very closely with the plan
And
for
the Mormons and the Catholics are both, when we talk about how the Illuminati, the 5 pillars of the Illuminati that Jesse always has spoken about,
correct.
Mormons,
Yes.
Catholics each form a part of that, each have a pillar, so to speak.
Correct.
Very interesting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Are they? I don't know. I'm not going to say definite, but there's certainly aspects about this that makes me have some concerns. So the language, what concerns me is language around this movie. And I was having discussions with some people about it who we were, the point where it's a really great movie and get the truth out there. And I go, yes. However, look at the language behind the movie and look at where it's pushing people. Now, I don't want to go, I'm going to jump back to that in a minute because I don't want to basically get myself lost with where I want to take you. Now, I did a bit of a research into whether the storyline is actual truth. So the American Crime Journal site, if you go in there, you can read the whole story on whether the movie about the little guy Pedro is actually true 100%. Is it true 100%? Okay. All right. Yes, there was a little boy brought over the border, right? He was taken by Buchanan. Now, Tim Ballard tells everybody to do your research on Earl Buchanan, the so-called rebel, cartel leader, sex abuser, right? That's what he tells you to do. And basically, if you go into American Crime Journal, go right down to the very bottom, you'll actually find where the real story is published by Los Angeles Times, by I think Suzanne Rosenblatt, July 12, 2006. Right? Then you go to the Daily Bulletin, March 4th, 2009, where, again, they tell the whole story. And the fact that Buchanan got 17.5 years jail for the abuse of Pedro. And you actually go in and find out that Buchanan was a 65-year-old millionaire who started as a plumber, then a general contractor, and then an investor in real estate. So he had a whole bunch of houses, and he'd hire illegal immigrants, and he owned properties, and he'd befriend the families and the children and take the children swimming, bowling, and to amusement parks, right? And so he befriended the grandmother to this little boy and took him over the border, apparently, to see his father. And he's coming back, and he didn't have the little boy's, his identification and stuff. So basically they pull him aside. So part of the story is true. They catch this guy coming over the border. They go through the camera and find out, Buchanan's camera, and they find out that he's being abused, right? But apparently Ballard was never there. He wasn't there at the time. And he's not a drug cartel. Wow. He's a millionaire. Now, you can shoot me the messenger, right, if you so choose to do that. But first do your homework and find out if it's true. The court papers are in. Go down to the American Crime Journal site. You can actually find the court papers. And I've actually got, what is he? I've got it here. Boyce, Robert E. Boyce, the court records 2006 State Bar Attorney documents by Robert E. Boyce, right? And motion to compel discovery, 4th of the 9th, 07. Earl Buchanan pleaded guilty to sexual exploitation and state charges of lewd acts with 6 boys and girls under 7. He's not a leader of a drug cartel in Colombia. The story never happened the way Ballard was selling it. So he was 45 minutes away. He never met Buchanan until he was in custody. The boy is not Mexican but American, and his sister was never kidnapped. She was living at home with grandma when border security show up to find her. The boy went to Mexico with Buchanan on permission, and Buchanan was abusing him and brought him back over the border without his ID. That's the story that is documented with the court papers in that that site. So go check it out for yourself. So that's the American Crime Journal. So basically, there's a woman called Alessandra Serrano, was the assistant U.S. attorney that prosecuted Earl Buchanan. Guess where she now works? She works for Sound of Freedom. Matt Osborne also works for Underground Railroad, as that was called, was the first executive to stress to everyone the story was fictional. In June 2023, Operation Underground Railroad released a disclaimer that admitted Ballard lied about the origin of the movie. Now, yes, he's rescuing children, but however, that storyline it's based on two stories. It's based on a little boy that was taken in Haiti. His father, he's born in America, and he went to Haiti with his dad, who was a pastor, Marty Gardy, something like that. And he was actually kidnapped from the church in Haiti. And that's how Underground Railroad started, because they tried to find him, right? So, all right.
Wow.
So you've got to question and go, why would Tim Ballard lie, right? I don't know if anybody's heard a word of prevarication. Ever heard the word prevarication? Like,
no, actually, I haven't.
Okay, prevarication, I found this out very long time ago when I started my walk with the Lord. Prevarication is when your actions and your mouth lie together. And it's even the slightest. Like if you're trying to tell somebody something and you want to kind of get away with a little bit, you'll use an action, a very slight action, to convey that you're telling the truth. To me, as a Christian, you shouldn't even prevaricate from the truth. All right, that's to me that's the honesty that a Christian should have.
Absolutely.
Why would Tim Ballard lie? I'm not quite sure. Right? Is it money? Is it fame? Is it for a darker ulterior motive? Is he being manipulated? Is he being encouraged? Does he want to just get rich on this? I don't know, but I can only.
My take on that, when we understand how these things work, these guys are pawns in a very ugly, nefarious system. They are all just pawns in this game. They are puppets, and they are puppet masters. They're puppeteers, if you will, that pull their strings. And they, therefore, I mean, and I'm loving your information, Kerri. It really, really is fantastic. So, and, along with what you're saying, and also what Jesse was saying the other day, was that if we look, we've been hearing for years now how the Vatican's coffers are empty, and everything has been gone. Where's it gone to? And, the whole, what she's saying is that if it really was bankrupt or whatever, they wouldn't be carrying on. That's obviously the consensus, but that is being laundered through this movie. And there's symbolism in line with that. So if you're looking at the whole Catholic connection, if you're looking at the whole Mormon church, right, which we know now 2 pillars of the Illuminati, right? And they're working together. And it's very interesting because when we go back a few years, Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel made The Passion of the Christ. And Mel Gibson has been notorious for speaking out against these Hollywood celebs. But we've also seen in pictures and stuff how he is doing all these things. But, we hope that he's gotten out, as some have. That's kind of like the general.
That's the old Eye of Horus. And Jim Caviezel and Mel Gibson have both done it. And I did send you a photo where someone sent me a photo of Tim Ballard wearing a tie. If you think you might have that one there. See, that if you blow that up, that's a Freemason symbolism on his tie. Now,
And what's that on his collar? Is that not also like a little cross type thing on his collar?
I think he wears a cross, but
On the
on the
on his
tie,
lapel there.
I didn't really look at that. I looked at his tie. I mean, I must say, I was shocked when I saw it. I was hoping he was, all ridgy-dig, as Aussies say. But if you know about child trafficking, you know about symbols, and Tim Ballard should know what symbols mean and language means.
Yeah.
And when he wears a tie like that, tells me that that is a part of his life, and he
But
doesn't
I
have a
so
problem.
agree. The interview I watched with Ballard and Caviezel with Jordan
Mm.
Peterson, um, and I don't know if you guys watched my interview I did with Tom Althouse a couple of weeks back. And I want to say, if you haven't, please do. Tom Althouse is, for those of you who don't know, the actual script writer of the movie The Matrix. So, and of course, as we know how these things get done, it was stolen and manipulated and shoved in his face. And of course, everyone else got the fame and glory for that. So he's a fantastic person. We were talking about this, with Tom Althouse as well. And it's like what you're saying, Kerri. Um, Tom was saying that the thing that really bothered him about the movie was that they make it sound like this is happening elsewhere other
Yes.
than in America in many ways. And I didn't really know, because I didn't see the movie. I really don't want to see it. But at
No.
that stage, I hadn't seen as much as what I've seen now in terms of write-ups and stuff. But the interview, he states that he talks about the I don't know if I can say it on you without getting struck, but the adreno
Yeah,
cocktail,
yeah.
right? But he makes it like it's happening in West Africa, in the West African tribes, where the evil witch doctors are raping and impregnating women and taking their babies for SRA and organ harvesting and trafficking and stuff, and putting the male sexual organs above their houses so the demons can give them favor. He goes into great detail about that. And then he makes it sound like it's happening there. And then Jordan Peterson actually said to him, okay, well, there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding this. What do you say about that? So he actually says that, I don't know what they mean. He says maybe they taking what I've said there, and now they're accusing celebrities in America of doing that when there's no proof that they do and there's no evidence that that is happening. So now maybe the conspiracy is that they're saying I'm linking that to America. Now,
Mm.
that in itself is such a big fat red flag in terms of what it is that he's trying to hide or divert from, right? So already there, right there, you're seeing
Mm.
that the diversion is happening. Kerri, I'm
Yes.
just going to ask you to answer that. I'm going to put myself on mute for 10 seconds. I've just got someone at my door.
Oh, okay. Not a problem. Yes, well, that was the interesting part to me, that I really felt like this movie was portraying the boogeyman in another country rather than pointing the finger in our own backyard, and that we know that children are abused every day in our own countries. And yet there's apparently a boogeyman on the other side of the world that we all need to go fight. And to me, if this movie had portrayed the stories within our own backyards and really honed in on the more acceptable people of society that are trafficking our children, and not just for sexual gratification and stuff, but also within our social services systems, children are trafficked every day and families are torn apart. And this is the story that's tends to get ignored. Adoption gets sold as a beautiful thing, and the reality of the life for many adoptees is totally ignored. And particularly like myself, like, it's very hard to get the truth out there about what actually happens to the everyday kid in our backyard. Like but apparently we've got a boogeyman in a foreign country that we need to worry about. I'm sorry, the boogeyman is probably staring right at you through your TV, presenting himself as a savior. And I had that, like growing up. Yeah. So
something that's beneficial to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are many groups speaking up about this movie and concerns about Tim Ballard's mode of operandi in actually catching these perpetrators, right? And one of them is, and he portrays it in the movie, and again, I've not seen the movie. I did try watching some of it. I couldn't stomach it. And so what he does is he sets up an island and he pretends to be a pedophile, and he puts the call out to traffickers that, he's going to have a whole bunch of other men there that are willing to engage in sex with children. So the traffickers bring the children in. Now, this poses a problem, because if you're a trafficker and you go, gee, oh boy, there's a lot of Westerners come out here and they're putting the call out for a lot of children. I only have 5. I need to go find some more because I want to make a lot of money. So they're going to go and displace and take and kidnap more children. And this is not just my concern. This is the concern from other legitimate organizations that go in and save children, protect children. My concern is once those children are taken by Tim Ballard, he says they're put into a thing called aftercare, and there's been a lot of scrutiny over it, and people stating that this aftercare system, he's billing for it, and there's not the number of children in that aftercare process, and somehow there's maybe some fraud going on in the numbers to get the money. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I know by the research I do.
I want to just take you on that note. I want to take that further. We're just going to stop for our ad right now. But there was definitely stuff on the aftercare I wanted to talk about. So, yeah, we're just going to take a little bit of an ad break for our Spooky 2 promotion channel sponsor.
The story of our founder. After witnessing the sufferings of many patients and resolving to help them, John White has developed several safe, effective, and affordable alternative medical devices. MiraMate aims to help everyone live in peace, harmony, and balance. Harnessing nature's endless energy, MiraMate's goal is to help the human body heal and bring wonders in recovery. The name MiraMate consists of 2 words, miracle and mate, meaning the products will bring miracles to the body and become a reliable partner for health issues. MiraMate Magic Pro has been released around 2 months till now. We got many wonderful testimonials about Magic Pro from our customers. Siddheshwar Chopra, who is our certificated trainer, talked about the much anticipated and welcomed full-body PEMF Magic Pro. Sid has tried it for his mother and himself, and seen really good results. Also, another friend, Steve Chia, shared his feeling about Magic Pro.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Siddheshwar Chopra. I have few testimonials to share about Magic Pro. I've recently purchased it as I have been a big fan of magnetic therapy since quite some time now. Recently what happened was, my mom has diabetes since many years, and she gets this burning sensation on her feet since quite some time, and she couldn't sleep well. So what happened was, it's like 15 to 20 days before, she slept in PEMF field on Magic Pro, and I played some emotional frequencies and some chakra frequencies, and to my surprise, she reported the very next day that the burning sensation got down to 60%. From 100% it came down to 60%.
Our mission is to inspire better health among individuals. We envision bringing MiraMate to every family, making it accessible and beneficial to all. At MiraMate, we prioritize our customers above all else. We serve them with creativity, love, honesty, and gratitude.
Cool. Well, and back to you, Kerri, on that note.
Very good. All right. So we were going to talk about aftercare. This was something you wanted to say on it. Are you right?
No, I just wanted to find out about, because to me that was definitely that, you know, and part of what I was also reading up on, listening to, there were these mention of the aftercare places that they were talking about, but I'm wondering what's behind that, because that doesn't seem like it's very aftercare-ish.
Yeah. Well, as far as I've been able to ascertain, you know, it's where the children go to get the care they need afterwards, and they would need it. Like, you know, if you've been sexually abused, you know, the way you were, yes. And look, the issues around aftercare and other issues with OWL, which is our Underground Railroad, is that Tim Ballard's sister also left the organisation. There were many that have left the organisation because they were very, very upset with some of the things that were happening. And they're the only ones that can speak on that. I wasn't there to see it, but, you know, it's been documented, you know, by other sources that there are certainly issues there. And, of course, you know, I've pointed out clearly you can go and see the actual court documents. So, you know, if you go and read the story by the journalists, Los Angeles Times, and the court documents, and you find out that Tim Ballard's story is not completely true. Yes, there are true aspects to it. What then do you ask yourself? And that's the most important question here. Are we so hungry to see the bad guys brought to justice that we can't see the forest for the trees in the process? We still have to be able to discern truth and error. We can't, and this is what worries me about the movie, and I'm going to really try and put it out there and explain it. All right. What I'm seeing happening to a build-up is this concept of God, that God kills, judges, and condemns, right? Now, when you have two Christians, such as Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel, pushing a movie the way they are, listen to the language. And when Tim Ballard actually said, and he quoted, "But whosoever shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me is better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and that he was drowned in the depth of the sea," and referring to, you know, this is what God says, what anybody that he was saying, if you abuse a little child, this is what God says should happen to you. Now, the next thing he says, and he says it with such emotion in it, he goes, Jesus spoke mafia talk. So basically, they should be executed, right? And this is condoned by God. And then you have Tim and Jim, they get confused me. So Jim Caviezel saying the final, he says he was at a Las Vegas for God, for Country and Patriot. He was a spokesman there, and he claimed the storm is upon us, echoing the belief, the final battle cry of William Wallace from Braveheart, urging the audience to send Lucifer and his henchmen straight back to hell where they came from. Henchmen are the human beings that are involved in this human trafficking. And so this picture of a God that is vengeful and that is coming to kill all the bad people, and that you as a Christian have the right to be a part of doing that. Right?
Exactly.
And
I was about to say that. Wow.
Right.
Jesus spoke mafia talk. Did he actually say that?
So I'm seeing this. Hey, what? Well, the Bible says that, but it's not referring to little children. It's referring to children. Yes, it's referring to the children. the young Christians, and it's referring to, the fact that, we shouldn't harm anybody. So if Christ is saying we shouldn't harm anybody, right, then why
Yes.
would Christ harm anyone? And I know through my experience that when Christ was here, he harmed nobody. He healed, he saved, and, he condemned no one. Mary Magdalene was in front of him, and they wanted her stoned, and he said, "He without sin cast the first stone." He looks at Mary and says, "Where are thine accusers?" He says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Right? There's so much depth in this in the essence of pulling apart this movie and the language of the movie and where they're pushing it. To me, it shows that it's moving to an agenda. And if we know anything about the New World Order and we know who's at the head of it, right, it will be enforcement of this one world government with this one world religion, with either you follow this way or pain of death. That's where it's going, right? And it'll be a lot like what we've had with the if you aren't right, then you're a slab on society. You don't deserve medical treatment, right? And the hatred towards the ones that were and the ones that weren't, that didn't comply, right, to the agenda. It's the same with the transgender movement. We had an inquiry here in Australia so transgender people could change the sex on their birth certificate. And anybody that spoke up against it was automatically deemed transphobic. And the hate came. You're speaking hate. When mothers and women's groups were going to the inquiry saying there's a concern about men dressing as women, going into the toilets and the showers with their child and going to the women's prisons. The minute that anybody tried to speak up, you immediately were shut down as being a hater, right? This is where this movie is going. When I tried to say something on a site recently about maybe Tim and Mel Gibson should give up their or expose or admit that they're part of the Freemasons and whatever, if they do that, I'll kind of come on board and be kosher, and I got called a groomer. So anybody that said I have an issue with this movie, you're a groomer, and basically that's the rhetoric around this movie. If you're speaking up, you're a part of the problem. You must be a pedophile because you don't like truth being told. So find out what the truth is. Now, I'm going to read you something because I've been sitting on this for 40 years. And if somebody wants to do a bit of research themselves, I've mentioned this fellow's name before. His name was Jim Arabido, and he had become a Jesuit, and he grew up as a Catholic, and he was brought into the Catholic Church, and he was being trained, and he went through the ceremony of abduction and extreme oath of Jesuits. This still holds today, right? So here's the priest saying to him through this oath, "My son, hereforto you have been taught to act the dissembler," which means a phony who acts like he's on your side but really isn't, "among the Roman Catholics, to be a Roman Catholic, and to be a spy even among your own brethren, to believe no man, to trust no man, among the reformers to be a reformer, among the Huguenots to be a Huguenot, among the Calvinists to be a Calvinist, among the Protestants and generally to be a Protestant, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied, and obtaining their confidence, to seek even to preach from their pulpits and to denounce with all vehemence in your nature our holy religion and the Pope, and even to descend so low as to become a Jew among the Jews, that you might be enabled to gather together all information for the benefit of your order as a faithful soldier of the Pope. You have been taught to insidiously plant the seeds of jealousy and hatred between states, that wear up peace and incite them to stir the people up to deeds of blood, involving them in war with each other, and to create revolutions and civil wars in communities, provinces, and countries, that were independent and prosperous, cultivating the arts and sciences and enjoying the blessings of peace, to take sides with the combatant and to act secretly in concert, to plot together with your brother Jesuit, who might be engaged on the other side, but openly opposed to that which you might be connected, only that the church might be the gainer in the end and in the conditions fixed in the treaties for peace. And
Wow.
that the end at the end justifies the means. So he says you have been taught your duty as a spy to gather all statistics, facts, and information in your power from every source, to ingratiate yourself into the confidence of the family circle of Protestants and heretics of every class and character, as well as that as the merchant, the banker, the lawyer among the schools, the universities, the parliaments, the legislators, the judiciaries and councils of states, and to be all things to all men for the Pope's sake, whose serves we are unto death. You are to receive all instructions heretofore as a novice, one who has no training, right, and to have served as a helper, confessor, and priest. But you have not yet been invested with all that is necessary to command in the army of Loyola in the service of the Pope. You must serve the proper time as the instrument and executioner as directed by your superiors, for none can command here who is not consecrated his labors with the blood of the heretic, for without the shedding of blood there can no man can be saved. Therefore, to fit yourself for work and make your own salvation sure, you will, in addition to your former oath of obedience to your order of allegiance, to be loyal and follow the Pope, which this is what he was to repeat, that whole thing. Now, that was a lot to take on board. Yes. So this is the papal church that has not changed, that is gaining and wanting full dominance of every human life in the world, who will kill, flay, and dissect anybody who will not agree with its mandates and its dogmas, and that you will be a Jew to a Jew. I read it out, like, the whole thing. You will be a policeman in the street. You'll be your best friend, whatever you have to be, you have to morph. And he was initially taught to go into the Protestant churches, and what he was taught was how to create such mayhem to tear particular churches down. The girls who were trained to go in those churches and seduce the pastors and create that, so it all fell down. So it was to continually
absolutely
go. All right. So
absolutely.
If you go, all right, we don't want to believe the worst in other people, particularly people who are saving the lives of children. But you have to question yourself about this movie and its motives and the connections that they have to people and organizations. Look, it could be just Tim Ballard his own 5 minutes of fame, right, in the work that he does. Could be as innocent as that. However, when you start adding up everything else together, you start to get the bigger picture of where and why this movie's made, and the whole essence of basically the whole rhetoric around it and where it may want to take people. That's what I'm throwing out there. And I'm asking people to do your own research, to do your own looking, do your own praying, and consider this, that, to understand that God neither kills, destroys, or condemns. And when we start talking to people who profess to know Christ, and that's the first thing they're going for. And yet I've not heard once from Tim Ballard about any of the abusers being drawn in to accept Christ into their life. Not once. And if Jesse talks about, you ask Jesse a number of times about the Satanists, and Jesse said God loves the Satanists. He loves the people, hates the sin, right? Can he save a Satanist? Of course he can. Where's the opportunity for all these human lives, even though they're doing something horrific? Where's the opportunity and the opening for them? And here's another one to think of. If Buchanan is not guilty of the actual crime he's being accused of, that he's not a drug cartel, whatever, actually the organisation interviewed his son, and at the moment their lives are an absolute mess because they were abused by Buchanan, their father, but now they're copying backlash from community and society that their father's a drug cartel rebel that sent these children the story that Ballard, but he's in jail. You know, he's a sexual offender, but he's not what Ballard is saying he is, apparently.
Yeah. Makes for better ratings, I guess, you know, so they would have obviously movied up the story a bit to make it somewhat more spicy and juicy.
Yeah.
As Hollywood is renowned for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So the connections go deep, and it goes much, much deeper, I think, than many of us could really contemplate. And, you know, it's more nefarious than we think and insidious. It's been done in a way to draw at our heartstrings about children. Like, really, I mean, I'd be the first person to jump on board if I felt this was absolutely 100% legitimate. And I think most of the people watching this would, but that's not what's happening. And I don't understand why people are not listening to the victims in this process.
Well, you know, I'm of the opinion of these things. Again, you know, we're dealing with master manipulators here.
Correct.
These guys have been manipulating through the hive mentality for a very, very, very long time, right? They know exactly how to do it. So a lot of the tactics they're using, you know, some people have already, you know, they're coming out of this matrix. Some of them are on their way out. You know, my point with these movies, and I fully agree, because I do believe it's here to divide and conquer in many ways, in as much as what the Zappadoo was as well, right? It's part of that whole, as you say, you either totally pro-trans or you're transphobic, or now you're totally pro this movie or you're a pedophile. That's the narrative, you know, and that's the fight that they try and create within the general public. I think, you know, obviously it's important for us that are in the know to expose this type of information. On the other hand, I know God does not make mistakes, and this movie and all its players would have been ordained by God to make this movie. Whether it's to bring up people like Tim Ballard and, you know, get us to focus on his shenanigans so that at the end of the day, his own plan has backfired on him is a good thing, right? And what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are doing that. I'm looking at a lot of stuff on him. Suddenly he's a hot topic on everyone's lips. Good. So it's also bringing up a lot of truth about him as well, you know. Yes, I do agree, you know, there can be that sucked in, and we're hearing rumors that this is how they want to get our kids microchipped and stuff like that.
Correct.
Because now instilling enough fear so that the parents run off and microchip their kids and say, oh my God, that can't happen to my child. No parent wants that for their child, right? So there's that as well. You know, and as I say, there's also the part where people can go, hang on, and then suddenly maybe it's the first time they've heard about this, but then start investigating Tim Ballard and they find that takes him down a completely different pathway and gets them to open their eyes to other things as well. So for me, you know, definitely these nefarious players, these bad actors are also playing their role. We have to practice discernment, and we have to listen. This for us is like to listen to what the victims are saying, what the survivors are saying, what the ones in the know are saying. You know, we obviously have to, those of us who've not been involved in this and don't know for sure what's going on, we've got to actually wake up to look and see what's going on and realize how much deception is truly out there. So I do believe in many ways it's going to wake people up for the good as well. Not necessarily, child trafficking, but as I say, Tim Ballard being exposed now for the dodgy one that he is. So this is how I believe things also work in reverse.
It
It's up
does.
to
And
us.
yeah, I was going to say that the flip side of this as well is this movie with everybody getting on board and believing it. So we all believe it 100%. And then it's revealed later that it was a lie, could actually undermine the true work or the true victims and survivors, you know, and what adrenochrome is. So if it comes out that he's lied and then it gets exposed, you know, could you imagine it? Like finally, like the media comes out and it's all a big lie. What does that then do to the real story, the real victims? Like they'll poo-hoo everybody down that train then.
But Kerri, this is where it's so important. You see, and this is where I say the warfare exists. It's not boom fighting these guys and slicing a demon's head off. No, this is where the victims in these situations have to actually become the victors. So through their testimony, through uniting, through talking, through writing their books, through sharing their stories, through telling the truth of what their experience has been. You see, this is what I keep saying. The only way we are going to transcend this and win this war, so to speak, is through raising our consciousness. That's what these guys are after. That consciousness that we as humans have, that's the juicy juice they're after. That is the juicy juice they're after. That is why they're going to do what they have to in the most torturous ways to get their human sacrifice and claim what they want. Why? Because they don't have it. We do. It is up to us to realize we hold the power within us. And as long as we're going to be fighting about Jim and Tim and whoever, we have lost focus. That's why I say, let them do what they want. Let them put out all the shit they want. We're not going to stop them. What we can do is see the wood for the trees. What we can do is practice discernment. What we can do is not get involved in the war and not this every victim who's been a victim of these situations. This is your call to stand up and speak. This is how we win this. This is how we move forward. This is how the troops of our team, so to speak, rally together and we actually beat them at their own game. That's the art of war. It's not fighting with guns and knives and whatever. The art of war is beating your opponent at their own game. We've got to be smart enough to know how to do it. It's all energy. It's all spiritual. And it's in the spirit world, we don't have swords and things that we chop each other's heads off. Although, in our imagination, we probably do. But we really have to raise our frequency so that our energy is having enough of a love vibration and a peace vibration that these guys can't suck the life out of us anymore. So that's what I'm saying. And we as parents show the way to our children. We give them the right tools with which they can protect themselves with God's good grace, because when our kids are in alignment with God, they are protected. Right? So all it is really getting into God's alignment and into God's protection. And when we have that, we know it, and we know that we are protected. And the speaking, the victims have to stop being victims and understand they are victors and use their voice. They've got to use their voices and stop fearing these people, fearing this can happen, fearing that can happen, fear the next thing. What if? yeah,
Yeah.
what if? We're all going to die at the end of the day, but
Mm.
what role have
Yeah.
you played in creating awareness on this
Mm.
planet? What legacy do you leave behind when you
Mm.
go back to God and say, I came down to be the survivor that made the world of difference, but I was too afraid to use my voice?
Mm.
That's what
It's
I'm saying.
interesting because I when I listen to Tim speak and others on this movie, and I've heard stories from many survivors, and predominantly survivors speak in a manner that's not about revenge. And
Yeah.
you know, and I've been the same way. And it's not about getting revenge on the bad person. It's about your journey, and you know, and finding the strength in that and the truth in
Yeah.
that, and finding your value as a person, and
Yes.
wanting to protect other people from becoming victims to people who abuse. And you know, and I just find it interesting, the language that's being used around this, and watching people who are watching this movie and being quite sick and angry or fearful, and yet you've had victims who have lived it saying something else. And I think that's what's really important to hear this. You know, I mean, how many interviews have you reckon I've done with you at the moment? And if anybody should go back and watch any of those, you know, I'm often exposing the depths of, you know, adoption, and the harm and the trauma that comes with that, and orphanages, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think that, you know, if anyone went back and looked over, they will not find that I'm calling for any hurt or harm to even happen to the people that abused me. In fact, I tell the story of how I brought my adoptive father to God. You know, I went and I cared for my adoptive mother at the end and tried to prevent her from committing suicide. You know, so
Yeah, I
that's
know.
yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
think
the
I
essence.
think a lot of
And you
sorry, I wanted to say I think a lot of the overcomers that we work with here certainly have that idea, you know, and that's what makes you guys brilliant healers. You know, what I'm really saying is for everyone that,
correct.
and it's not a war that we understand that is fought like this. It's a
No.
war, you know, it's a raising of consciousness and a raising of vibration. So the way we heal is by speaking and using our voices, and not being drawn into fear, and not saying anything because we are too scared. You know, that for me is how we lose the battle, is
Yeah.
by not stepping up when we need to, by letting
Yeah.
our guilt hold us back or our shame hold us back, you know. And it could be in so many other areas of life as well. It's not
Yeah.
only in the abuse or SRA or whatever, any area of life, you know. These you know, we're spiritual before we're physical. So we have to see what are the things that stop us from using our voice if we've been a survivor. Every voice that is being used that's God's weapon. That's the weapons we need.
Yeah.
That's what we need. You
Yeah.
know, every survivor to not focus on the war, but rather how can I do my bit
Yeah.
to change
Yeah.
what is currently happening.
Correct. Or change. You know, it's about, if I would assess my journey is, yeah, what you're talking about, but basically just having your walk and growing, and then teaching others. And it's not even so much about what you say, it's the life you live, Chantel. It's
Absolutely.
every decision that you make for the day, and the engagement that you have with people. And that is a sermon on its own. That's showing Christ, and Christ working in you, when you can go back out into society and not be tearing it down, but lifting it up. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So,
I agree.
yeah, it's
Christ can only work through you if you allow Christ to work through
correct.
you. You know, and
Yes.
I think what I find with a lot of Christian people is they will receive forgiveness and redemption for whatever their sin is that they've committed. But many of them battle to accept that redemption.
Yes.
They have a big problem accepting Christ's forgiveness.
Yes.
So they, as a human, still feel guilty or shameful or whatever. And when you're having those emotions, you can't do the work of Christ. You have to say, yes, I've been redeemed or saved or whatever. Now let me accept your redemption. Let me accept it and let me live it.
Yes.
That's where I think a lot of people, especially Christians,
yes.
that's the premise that a lot of Christianity, I think, falters in, is that, yes, we know we're forgiven. Okay, so now what are we going to do with that forgiveness? Right? What are we going to do with Christ's forgiveness? Are we just going to talk about it and sit at home and shout about it to everyone and hurl my Bible verses at them because of this? At the end of the day, or am I going to get up? Am I going to receive the forgiveness? Am I going to act on it? And am I going to live it? Because that's how I become a warrior for Christ. Not by shouting about God's Bible verses. Really.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
and I think that, go on.
No, sorry. Okay, I was just saying we're quite over time, but I think maybe just if you want to do something as a final end off.
Oh, okay. I was just going to add to why I think that's a big problem, Chantel's, because unfortunately, a lot of our Christian churches teaches or enforces that God punishes and God kills and condemns, and that's the problem. And that until we understand God's true character. And fully accept that God is love and he is incapable of that, we'll always live under the shroud that somehow I just don't measure up, right? I'm at fault to some level. And basically, until we understand that, God has complete love for us and it's unconditional. And, when I read it about when they're doing the oath, and we're being taught that God expects a sacrifice. God does not expect
Satanism. That's Satanism. That's
Correct.
Satanism. God does not want you to sacrifice anything. God wants you to sacrifice your bullshit.
Yes.
That's what God wants. God is asking you to sacrifice your crap. Damn. When are we going to get it?
So that's basically the guts of it, is that we have to stop. And this is where we're going, is that if people start looking at this movie, start looking at the bigger picture and where they want to take us, and it's about trying to tell us that God accepts a blood sacrifice. God, that's selling this, that God expects a blood sacrifice. And that's where you get the Satanism from, and all the adrenochrome and all this other rubbish that they do. But they're trying to impart that same character and personality onto God. And, there's a great piece in the scripture that says, how Jesus said, how readest thou? Not what are you reading, how are you reading it? Under what lived experience have you had? What value system do you have? What have you been taught by your parents and your culture and your society when you pick up the Bible? Because the minute you do, if you want to see a God that kills, that's what you're going to see, because you already came programmed to see that. You've got to start seeing it in a total different view by accepting, right, that that's not what the whole story of the Bible was about. And unfortunately, I will predict that you're going to see a rise up of people with, proclaiming God, but proclaiming they have the right to judge, kill, and condemn and destroy.
Well, I think that's kind of like, honestly, what I'm seeing, that is the Christian fanatics right now. If I'm just seeing what's happening on the channels that I host, and the amount of trolling and bullshit that comes my way, and not just my way, but people that I interview as well. I mean, it's crazy out there. And they're these Christian fanatics who think they've got to go and chop the heads off the witches' demons. I mean, that's the
Yes.
biggest lot of crap I ever heard in my life. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing about that is Christian. Nothing.
No.
Anyway, we're going to take this conversation on again. And it's true. I'm just looking at some of the comments. Yeah, Prince, what you're saying, he wants mercy, not sacrifice. Absolutely. Mercy for us. So we have mercy for ourselves. You know, God wants us to experience God's mercy that God feels for us within our lives. We can forgive ourselves. We can be amazing, in tune human beings, aligned and connected. And then we see nothing else matters. You know, nothing else matters. That's the bottom line. We love each other just because we have good hearts. Nothing else matters at the end of the day. Okay, guys and girls, I want to say to you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Wonderful conversation again with Kerri Saint today. We look forward to having you back in a month's time again, 4 weeks. We do our chats every 4 weeks or so. So catch us then, and look forward to seeing you. What do I have later? Aha, drop in with Ara. I'll see you just now for drop in with Ara. Kerri, thank you so much. And we'll catch you in a couple of weeks from now.
All right. Thank you. God bless. See you later, eh?
God bless everybody. Thank you. Cherry buys.